Right. Sounds good. Hello, everyone. Welcome to November 13th meeting of the Lafayette Design Review Commission. I'm calling to order today's meeting. If you have any comments to speak to any of the items on the agenda, please submit it to the staff now. And if you're joining us through the Zoom call, once we get to the public comments of the items, please raise your hand. We will start the meeting with a roll call.
Lynn Cass.
Armand Halil present.
John Gray, present.
Richard Stanton present. We have 4 of the commissioners present tonight and meeting the quorum. Then we are going to move to the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt.
I have a suggestion,
Mhm.
to a minor alteration of the agenda. The study session that we're starting with is 3 properties by the same applicant adjacent to each other. I suggest they might be best considered together
Sure.
rather than as individual agenda items.
For staff presentation and public comments, we can do that.
Does that work for staff presentation?
That works for a staff presentation, yeah.
Okay,
Is that okay with the applicant?
all in favor? Say aye.
I'm in favor of the amendment.
Friendly amendment?
I second the amendment.
All right, and all in favor?
Aye.
So with that, minor change, we are gonna adopt the agenda. Next, we are gonna move to, public comments for items not on these or an upcoming agenda and within the purview of the commission. Do we have any raised hands? Okay, so we are gonna move to item 4A. Meeting minutes for September 26th, DRC meetings. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to adopt them.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting minutes for September 26th meeting are adopted. Then we are gonna move to minutes for October 10th. Do I have a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Adopted. Then we are gonna move to item 5A, SS 03-23. R40 zoning request for a study session to construct a 4,637 square foot 2-story single family home and 824 square foot garage with a maximum reach height of approximately 35 feet. Removing 8 trees on a vacant parcel in the Hillside Overlay District at 1233 Cambridge Drive. Tonight we have Anatole as a
And we're gonna consider B and C together with that.
right. So I'm just gonna mention that tonight we have got Anatole, and then with that, we do have 1231 Cambridge and 1227 Cambridge, all 3 of them presented tonight by the staff. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next slide. The projects have been introduced. So 1233, 1231, and 1227 Cambridge Drive are located at the terminus of Cambridge Drive on a private section of the street in the Hillside Overlay District. Concentrated at the northern end of each site. Next slide. The first westernmost site is heavily vegetated with large trees and shrubs with a clearing towards the front of the lot, which is the north end. All development is proposed in this area at the north end of the lot, just off Cambridge Drive, and the lot slopes up from the roadway to the southwest rear corner. Next slide. On this lot, the applicant proposes to construct a new 2-story, 4,637 square foot, single-family residence with an 824 square foot semi-detached garage and a pool. Also shown on the plans is a 780 square foot additional dwelling unit, or ADU, which are not subject to discretionary review by the DRC and would be separately reviewed by staff once the applicant has received the entitlement. Development is, as I said, concentrated toward the front of the lot and in a location which appears to have the least amount of tree removals required, and grading is minimized, even though it is a hillside. The building placement also reduces the need to construct a very long driveway to reach the home. Preserves as many trees on the site as possible. This orientation generally follows the contours of the site, which is recommended in order to minimize impacts to the hillside. Next slide. The development would require the removal of 8 trees, all of which appear to be protected species. On a vacant lot, any tree with a diameter greater than 6 inches is protected and requires a tree permit to remove. As part of the formal submittal, the applicant will need to submit a tree mitigation planting plan. Next slide. The applicant proposes a 2-story residence with 6 bedrooms and 6½ bathrooms. The first floor here includes 1 bedroom, 1 full bathroom, and a powder room, in addition to the kitchen, dining, and family areas. Next slide. On the second floor are 5 bedrooms, including the primary suite, with each bedroom having an ensuite full bathroom. The second floor is stepped back for much of the perimeter, which reduces the mass of the second story. Next slide. The apparent maximum ridge height is approximately 35 feet, calculated from this site section. That is the maximum permitted in the R40 zoning district. But with the formal submittal, the applicant would provide full building elevations, which would more clearly demonstrate the building's height and how the massing is broken up. Although the second story is stepped back along the facade, as you can see in this site section, the building may still appear quite massive when viewed from the roadway due to the slope. Efforts to reduce the apparent massing should be made, and the applicant should also include trees for screening in their landscape plan. I will now move on to the next parcel, SS0423. 1231 Cambridge is the middle of the 3 vacant lots. It is also sloping up from the roadway and is heavily vegetated with a clearing toward the front of the lot. Next slide. The proposed development includes a 2-story single-family residence of 4,329 square feet, plus a 615 square foot attached garage. Also shown on the plans, similar to the one we just viewed, is an additional dwelling unit, which would be subject to staff review at a later time. Construction of the driveway will require terraced retaining walls at the front of the property, and staff recommend including vegetation for screening and visual interest in the final landscape plan. Next slide. The proposal also requires the removal of approximately 15 trees. Some of these trees may be under 6 inches in diameter, and therefore would not be protected species, but an arborist report will be required along with the formal submittal, which would detail the condition and size of each tree in the vicinity of proposed construction. This would also include recommendations for retention of other protected trees on the site. In general, the siting of this residence also preserves as many trees as possible. It is a very heavily wooded site, and it does fit the existing contours of the site. Next slide. The first floor includes an attached 1-car garage and a separate attached 2-car garage, as well as laundry, kitchen, living, dining room, 2 bedrooms, and 2½ bathrooms. Next slide. And the second floor proposes 4 bedrooms, each including a primary suite with a full bathroom as well. The second floor is stepped back, but at the rear of the residence, as well as over the 1-car garage. And staff recommendation is to explore ways to step back the mass at the front left corner of the residence, which is closest to the street. Bedroom 5 as shown on the floor plan, as that has the higher potential for visual impact when viewed from the roadway. Next slide. This site section of the rear half of the house shows the maximum ridge height to be approximately 28 feet. And this is consistent with zoning regulations, which limits it to 35 feet. However, the height will be more clearly shown in the full elevations when those are submitted along with the formal project submittal. Additional site sections may also be necessary for the driveway and parking area of the residents and to demonstrate the grading and slope in those areas. Next slide. And finally, we have 1227 Cambridge. You can go to the next slide. The easternmost of the three lots. The northern portion of the site where development is proposed has relatively few trees and is fairly flat in comparison with the southern uphill portion of the lot. There is an existing curb cut for a driveway off the cul-de-sac of Cambridge Drive. Though the applicant proposes a new driveway entry to the west, I believe tonight, as part of their presentation, they may show an alternate driveway location as well from the cul-de-sac. Next slide. This proposal is to construct a two-story, 4,739 square foot residence, an 804 square foot attached garage, and a pool. An ADU is also shown in the rear yard of the residence, and this ADU will be subject to staff review once the project has the entitlements. Of the 3 study sessions presented tonight, this residence is the closest to homes along Cambridge Drive, the public roadway portion of Cambridge Drive. It has the potential to appear more massive in relation to its surroundings because the homes to the left in this image, but that is to the east, are smaller lots with smaller homes, while homes to the west are larger lots with larger homes. So staff would like to see the applicant reduce the scale of the proposed residence to create a transition area from these smaller lots with smaller homes to the larger lots to the west. Next slide. The project appears to only require the removal of 2 trees, and depending on their size, they may be protected species. The applicant proposes to install screening trees along the property frontage as well to create visual screening. To minimize grading to create the circular driveway as well as reduce privacy impacts, staff recommends the applicant explore relocating the garage to the front of the residence if possible. This would shorten the driveway and reduce the amount of windows overlooking the front of the property line. Next slide. The first floor includes a 3-car garage, an office, 1 bedroom, kitchen, dining, and living areas, as well as 1 1/2 bathrooms. While the second floor plans include 4 additional bedrooms, each with an ensuite bathroom. Slide. Staff estimate the maximum height of this residence to be 35 feet based on this site section. But again, detailed building elevations will be required to determine the actual height. The residence may appear very tall in comparison with the surrounding homes, given the slight slope as well at the front of the lot. Staff recommend reducing the apparent mass through either reducing the overall area of the second floor, adding more trees for screening, including additional architectural elements to add visual interest, or a combination of these actions. Next slide. Staff received 3 written public comments, which were published with the staff report. And common concerns regarding all 3 properties include drainage and slope stability, history of poor drainage in the area, the overall size of the proposed residences, and whether or not they are in scale with the neighborhood, the desire to preserve as many trees on the site as possible, and concerns regarding emergency vehicle access or evacuation via Cambridge Drive from the additional development. Staff expect the following permits will be required to process a formal application. The hillside development phase 1 and phase 2 will be required. The phase 1 is a siting and massing determination with the Planning Commission, and the phase 2 is design review with this commission, DRC. This is because the property is a vacant property in the Hillside Overlay District, and that is the process for vacant lots. also likely to be required is a grading permit if they propose to remove, add, or grade more than 50 cubic yards, as well as a tree permit to remove any protected trees on the sites. This is an informational item only, so no action will be taken tonight by the DRC, but staff requests that the DRC take public comments and provide feedback on the proposal as the applicant prepares a formal submittal. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions. I return to you.
Thank you. Any questions for the staff?
So I had one. So when it's formally submitted, you mentioned the two-step process for in-store implementation. Has there been any presentations of the planning commission yet?
No, the planning commission doesn't typically do study sessions, so any study session is with the DRC.
But what we see tonight may change if the outcome of the review of the planning commission, something with the massing and siting.
Yeah, it is possible. Yeah, it could change after tonight's discussion based on, comments and feedback from the design review commission. And then a new design could be submitted for the planning commission review as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? We have applicants to present. Sure. You have 10 minutes.
Can you please introduce yourself for the recording?
Sorry?
Can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Bill Wood, I'm with William Wood Architects in Danville, and I've been coming before design review planning commission since I think it was 1984. And most of my projects over the years have been on hillsides and ridgelines. And I've always started years ago. We used to do study sessions kind of informally within a few days after we would requested and come in and just do it very informal, meet with the neighbors and give them as much information as possible. Try to get all the information out in the open initially before we do any kind of formal submittals. And that's kind of what we're trying to do tonight, because I think that I kind of came up with about 8 or 9 items that I wanted to press upon tonight, and want to keep everything transparent with all the neighbors and try to address, because I've read some of the letters regarding the major issues of drainage and not only drainage, but also water issues and also grading and so forth. So I want to kind of show you on the context map, sort of gives every lot, every property in the neighborhood with their size of homes, size of lots, floor area ratios and so forth, just so as a comparison. And I try to do that in a manner where you can get an idea of the relationship between the size of the property and the size of the home. Obviously the smaller homes are going to have a higher FAR because they have a smaller lot with a 3,000 square foot house or so on a quarter acre or 3/8 of an acre versus an acre and a half that has 4,000 square feet. So I put that on there, and also it gives you kind of a depiction of where we put the homes for lots 4, 5, and 6 relative to where you see all the greenery and also the foliage that's on there. And I've given Mr. Greenberg a copy. I've been kind of trying to keep him in the loop as well as we met out the site. And so the items that I want to address tonight quickly, so that I know that you have a lot of people who want to speak tonight, but I want to kind of reassure the neighbors, we want to try to minimize grading. That's kind of the reason why we put the homes in the placements that we had. And then the fire department, we met with the fire department, and regarding the distances from the access road to a place where they can drive to with a 150-foot hose that goes around the house. So by putting the homes further up the hill isn't really an option, because it's going to require massive grading to get a fire truck turn around if you put the homes up, 150 feet up the hill. The other items are, you'll have to take out quite a bit of trees further up the property as well. And we want to try to, maximize the distance also to the adjoining residences with keeping all the screenage of the trees intact as much as possible. The size of the homes is up for discussion. We've tried to kind of look at the maximum size. I always try to go in with the larger size just to make sure that I want to try to show what the actual potential is of the property. And again, the intent of this meeting is only for site location only tonight. It's not about architecture, about the floor plans. Driveway access is important, site location is important, retention of the trees, and minimizing the grading. So I don't want to get hung up on the plans because they're gonna be modified. Generally, when I go from this step, the study session into the formal application, I take the homes and go to the next level, which is then a stair step the homes. I'd like to get all three homes under 30 feet, even 28 feet. That's kind of the goal. And at the first point, I don't get too involved with the actual designs of the homes. I don't want to get in the exteriors because I know they're going to change. It's purely the site location, because that generally used to be the issues when we had study sessions. Whereas if you make a formal application and you go through all the work with the grading plans, drainage, landscaping, architecture, you end up coming up, sometimes the design review will say, let's look at another alternative for a building site, and you're kind of going back to square one. So without going too far into the process, I'd rather get the site's location, discuss the size of the homes, kind of come up with parameters of how high we want to make them, stair step all the first floors and the second floor, so there are no two-story walls, and try to maintain the minimum impact on the neighbors with the existing trees as much as possible, and put the homes in an area where there are no trees. But there are trees between the private road and the homes on lot 4 and 5, which I wanted to retain as much as possible and still be able to get the homes in a location where I have minimum grading. So it's a delicate balance because these lots are steep and there's a lot of vegetation. So any trees that to be removed are going to be small enough where they're, I think most of them are under 6 or 8 inches, the vast majority of them. And for the driveway on a couple of lots, the majority of the tree removal is for the driveway. The home, I've got one lot, I have only 1 or 2 trees, and other ones I have 2 or 3 trees being removed where the house is. So I try to maintain the location of the house in the least amount of impact from grading as well as the tree removal. So going into, let's start with lot 4, which is the furthest lot up the private drive. That home, basically, if you look at the site plan, you'll see that home has got several trees along the private road and also the adjoining property, which is at the end of the private road. There's a small hammerhead that's currently there at the end, and the driveway would continue up where the actual road ends now, kind of filters through the trees and then comes up to where the entry would be, and also the garage. The house is more linear because it's being, I don't know if you want to go to sheet A1 for lot 4, and that'll kind of give you.
This one.
That's lot 6. Yeah, lot 4 will be the first one. Everybody can see that one. You kind of see how we kind of,
The next
how we
sheet,
kind
I
of.
think.
There we go. So you'll see there are quite a few trees between the property line and the driveway. And also you've got a limit of 15% for a driveway for the fire department. So it's kind of a delicate balance to get up to the building site, leave all the trees that are on the downslope of the property in front of the house and also the driveway to kind of be able to screen the house with existing trees. And most of the trees around the perimeter are smaller trees. I try to keep as many of the larger trees as possible. There's one tree where the garage is, and there's another one right by where the driveway is coming up to the main part of the house. So again, we didn't anticipate any, like for ADUs at this point. The reason why we're kind of looking at possible sites for an ADU, I know staff has I know the ordinance allows the staff level approvals, but I think it's kind of important to see for the neighbors as well as the design review of, if you're going to put an ADU in, you can make a condition of approval that this is the location where you're going to put it. Because many times when you come with an ADU, you kind of get free reign of where you put it on the backyard, side yard, as long as you meet the requirements that the ordinance sets forth. But we only did this at this point to show approximately where probably an ADU would be and what the limitations are for a size of an ADU as well. So that lot, again, lot 4 has the square footage that's being proposed, or at least shown on the plan. It's reduced down, of course, and of course you get more space. And there might be a couple of trees that you might be able to save. Currently, it's 4,600 square feet. The FAR on that lot, on lot 4, is 4.4%. So what we try to do is to look at the properties right across from those homes and compare the FARs so we stay under what their FARs are. Lot number 3, which is across this property, is I believe it's 5.1% FAR, and we're staying at 4.4% FAR. The lot across from us is at 60,000 square feet, and this lot is 104,000 square feet, so we're 2.5 acres. And we're about 25% less FAR than the house right next door on that. Other than that, then, again, that's more of a linear design, so it's basically going with the topography, so we're trying to minimize digging into the hill. And again, all drainage on these homes are gonna be all designed through a civil engineer. Now we're gonna have soils report and also, drainage and grading plans, but most importantly, what offsite effects are as well on drainage, because there's a lot of concerns in the neighborhood. On this last rain season we had showed up a lot of problems that we've not seen in 15 years because of the drought. So I want to address all those items as well.
Sure.
You have 1 minute left.
Sorry, I just wanna, since we are covering 3 items, it makes sense to add more time for the applicant, so take your time, if, we can add to the presentation time. if you
Sure.
need more.
Well, I will go through each one and then kind of give you a brief kind of a description of each one, and then we can kind of go back and decide or
Sure.
discuss any one of those floors, and same with the neighbors. And I've got extra copies of the plans, of reduced sets if somebody wants them before they leave, so they can look at it as well. Yeah. And so that's lot number 4. Lot number 5, which is the middle lot. And that's on the context map, lot number 5 is pretty much across the street from the Greenbergs. And the FAR that we have on this lot is 5.7% and has 75,000 square foot of, it's about 1 acre and 2/3, or 1 acre and 3/4 for this property. And there is a clearing on this one as well, where the house location is, with a lot of dense trees between the private road and the home. FAR for the Greenbergs is 6.6%. They have 54,000 square feet, so it's about 1 acre and 1/4 on that. And then we've got, like say, 1 acre and 3/4 for lot number 5. The square footage on this home was 4329. And if you look at the plan, it's there. The driveway again goes up transversely with a slope to keep the driveway slope as minimum as possible on the slope, and maintain the distance for the fire truck can go up that driveway. And then you need 150 feet around the house. Now, a lot of homes over the last 40 years don't meet those requirements, because the statute hadn't been created at that time. But today's standards for fire truck access, they can go up 150 feet and they can back down, but they have to have no more than 150 feet around the house for the fire hose. So by putting the house again up the hill, you can see the lot gets steeper and steeper as it goes up. And I didn't show trees behind the house because it's totally dense with trees up there. So the ones you see behind the house, those trees get more dense as it goes further up the hill. And again, if you were to push the house further up, you take more trees out, more grading. But you can see in this scheme 5, there's a lot of trees in front of the house that'll help screen the house as well. We retained about 40 trees around the house. I think I counted that many. Most of the smaller trees that are being removed is for the driveway and the access. There's 1 tree in the building envelope, and it's not a very big tree. And there was also, I think, a copy of the civil engineers that had copies and names of all the trees that we had. I think it's like a long list of trees, about 300 that they identified the sizes of and also the species of the trees. Other than that, then this was a concern that when I met with the Greenbergs, that how to get the house in a way where the minimum width of the house is visible from the street, because the way the grades work here, they kind of come toward the private road, and then they make a right turn. So the grades do make a turn here, but I want to try to maintain the minimum width of the house facing the street. So you can see the house is more linear going back into the hill, parallel to the topography. And if we want to try to take that front bedroom on the front of the house, even remove it or move it back, I kind of foresee having that as a 1-story in the front and then stair stepping it back. Maybe the roof line can transition into the 2nd floor. So from the front, it would look like a 1-story where the garage is, and also where that bedroom currently is. I would probably push it all back and be able to maintain a 1-story facade, stair stepping it back to the 2nd floor. And then on lot 6, which is the final lot, which is right down at the cul-de-sac. I did an additional scheme too for a driveway access on this. So this lot is currently, so on the FAR on this lot for lot 6 is 7%. And across the street, the cul-de-sac is 9.5%. The lot across the street is 41,000 square feet, so it's almost exactly an acre. And this lot is 67,000 square feet, so it's about an acre and a half. So,
I have that alternate study up if you wanted to speak about it.
I'm sorry?
I have that alternate.
Yeah, the alternate. So there were 2 layouts for the driveway. The first one was the alternate driveway access. The Greenbirds requested that, see if we could come off the cul-de-sac and come into the property that way. There's actually 3 ways to get into the property. So the one that I've shown is pretty aggressive. There's an existing large oak tree that's in the right of way, right adjacent to maybe only 4 or 5 feet away from the curb. And that oak tree is a pretty massive oak tree. That would probably have to come out if we came in from the far end. And it's also, the grade at the building site is about 336, but the actual driveway, or actually the end of the cul-de-sac, is at about 520. So you see it's about almost 15, 16 feet difference in elevation. To come in where the existing driveway is now would require a huge cut to come in, and the distance you'd only be able to come up is maybe only about 6 feet at the most, because there's not enough distance to get the height to get a car up into where the driveway would be, and you'd have to you'd have to basically build a bunker coming into a garage like in the Oakland Hills to be able to do that. We proposed on our plan to come in off the private drive, which unfortunately is right across from the Greenberg's driveway, but you do have legal access off that. Then you can come in almost flat right off you'll see it on the scheme that I have drawn on the main plan that I did. But coming in where the existing driveway is doesn't give you any room, and you can see the change in grades from the street up to where the building location would be. It's just not enough room to get a driveway in there. If you come up the private road and you come in at the far right end, you can almost come in exactly flat. And there's almost no grading, and there's no disturbance of any grades in the first 35 feet of the property. And I wanted to also landscape that area as well, and that would totally screen the house altogether. So if we go to the main plan. So then you can see the driveway itself, and again, it becomes we relocate the garage closer up, and how we design the final plan for the location where the garage goes. But I want to assure one thing is more important on these 3 homes than anything is off-site parking doesn't really exist. I'm trying to get as much parking on site as possible. You really can't park on the private road. You can't park on the cul-de-sac. So you're going to have to retain any parking on site. So whatever we do, we want to try to be able to maintain parking where the garage is going to go. If there's a turnaround driveway, I can maintain more parking, because it's not really, this is a tough street. Even the small street coming up to the cul-de-sac, it's a tough street for parking. And so I want to try to have, as much parking as possible on site and still be able to maintain minimum grading. It's kind of a hard balance, because you're trying to maintain the minimum grading in here and still be able to get as many cars on the property as possible without infringing on the neighborhood. So you can see in this plan, we're coming in at about 530 elevation, and it's 534. So we're going up maybe 4 feet from the driveway to the main entrance of the house. So it won't appear like the house is up, 2 stories from the street. It'll be more of a same level as you come in. And then in this case, I wanted to also try to keep the house down under 30 feet, maybe 28 feet, and stair step any first floors to the second floor area. I tried to, in this plan, I tried to hide the garage in the back, so that way any cars that were coming in, it was intended also for purposes of additional parking. The parking could be back there as well. Any ADU I put behind the house so you don't see it. And I tried to be more kind of a transition from the lot 4 and 5 being larger homes that are on much larger properties. This is sort of a transition lot where we were right next door to the adjoining properties that are much smaller. So I'm trying to keep that kind of a transition of how the house is fitting into the property. This lot in particular has a large clearing, as you can see on the context map. And we're trying to keep as many of the trees as possible around the perimeter, but I'd like to add more trees along the slope where the cul-de-sac is. So that would allow that whole frontage would be screening the house rather than having the driveway coming in there and having a huge cut coming in
Sure.
as well. So
Mr. Wood, just in respect of the time, if you could wrap this up. the
that's it.
presentation.
That's basically it. That's
Okay.
kind of a nutshell of the
Great.
3 plans, and we're open for
Thank you,
other recommendations you have.
thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have some questions. Can you go through on the, is that cul-de-sac on this lot for the fire department's purpose because you
Yes.
don't have a hammerhead? Okay. And on the lot 4, you said there was a hammerhead,
There was one that was put in there that comes into the end of the road.
but that doesn't look like it's within 150 feet.
No, but there's a hammerhead that's currently at the end of that.
Can you pull that up
Pull that
again?
up on lot 4. Let's see. There's a
1233.
Yeah, so this is the terminus of the private.
right there. So if you look there, there's
Yeah,
a
I see
gate.
that.
Yeah, that gate unfortunately is left open permanently. Well, the neighboring property, I guess, was, from what I've been told, that gate's supposed to be left open all the time because the gate was put in after the development. And the fire department's requiring them to keep that open because that's where their current turnaround is. So from that point is the end of the hammerhead. And then from there, you can go up the driveway, no more than 150 feet and another 150 feet around the house. So that's your limitations. And we're pretty much there already. We're at about.
And the fire department is willing to back down that grade? That
As long as we
driveway?
meet the requirements, the driveway at the top, we're gonna widen that to a 28-foot radius as we come up, but they're maximizing the 15% slope, yeah.
Okay.
But we can't push the house any further up because as we go up the hill, the slope gets 20 to 30% greater in steepness.
Any other questions?
I have one question. There is a trail from the end of Cambridge to the neighborhood above up the hill. Is that anywhere near these properties?
No, that'll be on that's lots 8 and 9, which is where the home is existing on the middle of the lot 8 and 9, and then the owner's property is in the center of that, and then 4, 5, and 6 are on the downslope of that. So
Does the trail empty onto this private road or someplace else?
no, it comes down, to the end of Cambridge, I believe, on the other side of Cambridge.
Okay, thank you.
Can we go to that area plan? Maybe that would help.
Yeah, the contact map,
Yes, please.
the first. one here.
Yeah.
So you see at the bottom of the page, that's the owner's property. There's a home there. You go down where says context map, below that, there's lots 8 and 9. It's almost down where the tabletop is behind it. It's down about 200 feet. There's lots 8 and 9, and that trail goes from the other end of Cambridge, where where it comes into a private road, all the way near the top is a trail that's going to be going between 8 and 9. It's currently there. It's kind of dangerous because it kind of goes onto the driveway that goes from lot 8 and 9.
Okay, well, I mean, my only question was just, is anything we're doing here impacting the trail? It sounds like the
No,
answer is no.
not these 3 lots.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we are gonna move to public comments. First, we have Mr. Greenberg.
Bob, are you going to speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Do you wanna, You wanna go second?
I would defer
okay, Mr. Swell?
first.
Well, I'm Bob Swat. Longtime resident of Lafayette. We built our house about 30 years ago. I designed it 30 years ago. It's finished 29 years ago. And we are that lot right below lot 4. Okay. And that's where our house is built. I wanted to talk about 4 things, but I know I won't have enough time. The roadway is very important because it's our access and it's our egress, and when it gets blocked, and it gets blocked without construction on that little road. We've never had any construction on that road as long as I've been there, but it gets blocked with the construction just around the cul-de-sac. So I wanted to mention that, and I think it's very serious because that's how we get in and out, and without it being open. I think an operations and a staging plan is really important for this project. And I'm gonna skip all the other things I was interested in because this afternoon I did a sketch and I thought it would be important to show you this. And it's pretty close to scale. But this is our building. This is our home, way down the hill. This is, I know it's not architecture yet, but this is the section that was submitted by the applicant. And I wanted to point out that it's the massing that concerns me more than anything. And first of all, our driveway is not a hammerhead. So you need to know that. It's our driveway, it's not a hammerhead. And the fire department, yes, they said they'd like to have it open. When we were talking about having photo shoots at our house, which we have declined and not when we are not doing now. So it's not a hammerhead and it's not to be used, it's our driveway and we can close the gate. But the other thing I wanted to point out is that we have a lot of glass on the south side of our house, and we look at this hillside and we will see it. There's a lot of vegetation, and granted, there's a lot of it and a lot of distance, about 140 feet from here to here. That's a long ways. But the way, if the concept is to do a 2-story building and step it back about 8 feet, which is what it looks like on this drawing, the massing really is almost like a solid wall. I mean, if you go up 20 feet, which is what this is showing, 20 feet, because the understory or the crawl space is about 9 feet high. When you add structure to the first floor, you're talking about an eve line that's 20 feet above grade. Okay, it's not 1 story, it looks like 2 stories. And then you have another 10 feet beyond that, that's 30 feet. And when you view it from our home, far away, lots of landscaping, I know, but that's 71 feet from the eave, the top eave, to our first floor. Pretty far away, but it's way up there. And we have a lot of glass on the south side of our home. And I brought something that can show you that if you'd like, if you're interested. So what I would like to suggest as an architect, and I'm very uncomfortable making a recommendation to another architect, but I think all the homes would benefit, particularly this one, because this one really affects us by, instead of having a profile like this, that goes like that, goes like this, goes like that, and the land goes like this, building with the land, building with the contours of the land and taking the first floor, which I understand is gonna be 20 feet high by the time you have a crawl space, and then taking that top floor, which is 10 feet high, and sliding it up the hill, building with the land, stepping with the land. It's a nice, it's a way to build. A lot of really great buildings do that. I'd be happy to sit down with you and express my thoughts about that. But by doing that, it's really respectful to the people that involved. Because as you look, you see an eave line, you don't see the second eave line because it's set far enough back that you only see that first story.
Thank you, Mr. Sood. We are out of
Pardon?
time. We are out of time.
I know that.
Thank you.
I know that. If anybody wants to see how much glass is in that, the house below, we will have a lot of view of the new house, and they'll have a lot of view of us as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Greenberg?
Thank you. We live next door to the Swats, as Bill has said, and we've been there about 40 years. We developed the subdivision for 703 with the Sanders and then later Ken Hoffman. So I agree with everything Bob said. And I want to come back to something Bill said, which was, and Bill and Jonathan have done a lot of work and we appreciate what they've done and they've been very communicative. But as Bob said, the massing, the size, the height in this neighborhood where I think in the staff report had mentioned that there were larger homes and larger lots, there aren't larger homes and larger lots. These homes are up to 50% bigger construction wise than the homes below, either Swat home, which is roughly 3,100, and ours, which is roughly 3,600, and the Johnsons, which is about 3,800. So there's 4,700 in these plus 6 or 7 or 800 in garage and another 800 for ADU. I realize the ADU is ministerial, but it's still part of the massing. So when we consider the residence, we have to consider the entire construction on the lot. So the second point I would make is that I'm with Bill on 150 feet, but there's only one fire hydrant on the Cambridge Drive private roadway. It would be expensive probably, but you could put another fire hydrant in and you would not be limited to 150 feet. The massing and the ratios that Bill was talking about, these are 1.5 to 2.5 acre lots, but the homes are sited right next to the roadway. So it's extremely visible to everyone. And even with Bob's good suggestions, they're still going to be very visible. It's going to impact on the privacy of the homes. They're mega sized homes relative to what we have in the neighborhood on all sides. So we would recommend that if you're going to first reduce the size, second, let them go back up the hill. Yes, there are more trees and you might have to be more judicious about what you do, but you're built, as Bob said, you're building these homes into the hillside. So it's not going to be visible to the neighbors. It's hardly even going to be visible across Happy Valley Road if you do that. And the only impediment to that would be fire department. And that's solved by putting the fire hydrant up higher on the road to allow you to have the 150 feet, the trucks to tie to the fire hydrant and into the house. So that's the key point that Bob made. The size, height, and mass of the proposed development on each lot is not compatible with the scale and size of existing homes in the neighborhood. The secondly is that this is a very high fire hazard area. So massing homes closer to the roadway, our homes and Bob's home are over 100 feet from the roadway, 75 to 100 feet. These homes are less than 50 feet, 30 feet from the roadway. So again, another advantage of putting the homes further up the hillside is to create a fire break between their homes and our homes. And putting the extra fire hydrant in where you're now having, this was designed for 6 homes in the subdivision, 3 of which have been built, 3 are proposed to be built, plus 3 ADUs. That wasn't contemplated by the private road, which is it's a narrow road. So I think we all strongly are concerned about the fire hazard here and the need to put these homes further away and put another fire hydrant in at least in order to reduce the fire danger.
Thank you, Mr. Greensberg.
Okay, I've made other comments in the package related to drainage, which is a really big concern for the neighborhood.
Sure.
Because we all are subject to the subterranean and above ground flows from the hillside. There's a reason why Brazzoni never built on these lots for 50 years, because there's significant landslide areas, and you're all familiar with the Toledo Drive problems.
Sir, I'm sorry, but you're
Sorry.
going to end up being wrap up.
Thank you. Applicant, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Any comment?
Anybody online?
Do we have any
As a
reasons?
reminder for everyone attending online, you can raise your hand or press *9 if you're calling in. Do that now, please. If you'd like to speak.
No.
You do have
one.
You do have one.
Yeah. All right, we have a phone number, last four digit 7161. If you could please unmute yourself. Should be,
Hello.
yes. we can
Hello?
hear you. Hello,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
That's 3 minutes.
Appreciate it. So this is Brad Pritchard, my wife and I, Suzanne Pritchard. We live at 3921 Happy Valley Road, which is actually at the end of Valley View. So we are one of the property owners like Bob, who are adjacent to the proposed development, in particular, the 1233 Cambridge Drive property will be literally right next to us. So I submitted a number of questions to Anna previously and just wanted to lodge them here as well. So we have, number one, concerns about issues in terms of blocking our view. We currently have a view of Happy Valley, which, depending upon, as Bob mentioned, the size of the house going all the way up, whether that's going to block our view and potentially degrade the value of our house. We also have potential issues in terms of, depending upon the size of the house, whether there would, and how much development goes up the hill, whether there are privacy concerns or privacy issues, whether the new owners would be able to see into our property And then what was just mentioned is obviously a huge concern in terms of drainage. There's been a number of issues with some of the new development that's already on Valley View in terms of drainage, and whether this development, especially since it's adjacent to our property, is going to cause drainage issues and potential landslide problems for our house. So appreciate the time, and those are our initial concerns.
Thank you. Do we have any other reasons? Okay. So with that, we are gonna move to applicants. You have 5 minutes for rebuttal for each comment.
Start off with, Mr. Pritchard at 3921 Happy Valley Road. He is the lot directly to the west of the lot 4. And if you look at the site plan that we prepared on lot 4, you can see his lot, which would be, on page A1 on lot 4. Might be easier to see it that way. There you go. So his lot is on the right side where the title block is. And I tried to get 45-foot setback minimum on that side. And you'll notice that all the trees that are on the west side are being retained. Now, I walked up there 3 times and I got poison oak once when I went. And it is a lot of poison oak up in that area. So that area should be helped by retaining all those trees on the west side and trying to maintain. Also, it's 45 feet to the side of the garage, which is buried, so you won't see that. And the front entrance is probably another 35 feet to the front door there. So he's about 75 feet away, but the trees should give ample screening there. And there can be some additional trees and vegetation that can be added in the setback area, because that's quite a ways away from the house, as you can see on the right side of the sheet there. So that would address the project. And also drainage. There shouldn't be any drainage from this property going onto their property. The one thing that anytime you have a downsloping lot, you have to retain all the water at the lowest level of that property, which would have to be retained at the property line, so it doesn't go to Mr. Swat. Is it Swat? SWAT,
Yes.
SWAT, to their property, and that's with every property that is below other properties. You can't drain anything onto other people's property, so things would have to be at that, from the driveway coming up all the way to the end. That area would have to be retained with water somehow, whether it was some kind of a V ditch or something that would retain all the water and would take it off site and not go onto his property, which it probably currently does. All downslope properties that are vacant end up having some surface drainage and subsurface drainage going on to the lower levels of the property. To address, since we're on that lot, also the one issue I'd like to, for Mr. Swat, is also the staging plan is a great idea, and that's pretty common nowadays for building. If you have lots on neighborhoods, is where you're going to park construction vehicles, staging time wise for grading, and how that's going to be handled in the dry, and obviously in the dry season, like in April or May, try to have everything done before summertime and be able to, and construction drop off for equipment. So what we normally do now is when we do the rough grading is to maintain a temporary driveway and have all the staging. That's another reason why I wanted to have enough room up on top to be able to have trucks park up there, equipment and everything up there during the construction, and not have park anything on the cul-de-sac or on the driveway coming up. So that's number one on the agenda on that. Also wanted to also maintain that on the trees that are between the 2 properties, as you look up the hill, I'll do site sections from each house across the street in the formal application. But there's about 25 trees that are good sized trees that are on the south side, or excuse me, on the north side of the property adjacent to the Swat's property. There's quite a few trees, and the driveway is kind of threaded through the trees, so that way those trees will help screen the house altogether. You see that between the property line on the bottom of the sheet and the driveway, there are numerous trees that I've kept all on there to be able to screen not only the driveway but the house. And all retaining walls that are visible, we're trying to maintain 0 to 3 feet, nothing over 3 feet high. And I'd rather, if I did stair step retaining walls, I try to keep them at 3 feet. So vegetation that can be planted in the retaining walls will cascade over those walls and disappear within a year or two. Then again, the last issue with regards to like the site sections, I'd like to take his floor elevation, plot the trees, the heights and the driveway and the home itself. Stair step the home, I totally agree, is to take the first floor, let that be as close to grade as possible, maybe just have a multi-level house where you end up with, today, you've got multi-generational, multicultural, and then when you have multi-generational homes, you try to minimize the stairs. Everybody wants a one-story house now, and it's really hard to do on hillsides. And if you can try to, have a multi-level house, try to make the main living part of the house maybe step back and have one part of the house that steps down. So you have a one-story, the first floor of the lower level, maybe hides the upper levels as well. And maybe let the roof line kind of transition up from the first floor to the second floors and not have any, even walls above the roof. So we can maintain that. And there's one last thing. It was on lot number 6 is I wanted to kind of come to some agreement, and maybe we can work it out, is where the access point should be on lot 6. I know that I tried to do an alternate plan for coming off the cul-de-sac, but you can see the driveway access is there. And just whether or not we can come straight off of that. I know that that's something that that the Greenbergs, we can discuss and everything more in detail, but would like to get everyone's opinion on that as well.
Thank you. So with that, we are gonna move to commissioners' comments.
Start?
Yes, please.
Okay, I agree with a lot that Mr. Swat said, Mr. Greenberg, okay? There is a problem with the mass. It doesn't really reflect the residential design standards to step it into the hillside. And when you look at lot 4, you have a full story on the downhill side. And the existing trees are not even going to really hardly address any shielding of that. So you have a huge mass looking at a neighbor that's with glass walls looking right back up on it. So you may not be able to get 10-foot floor to ceiling heights on the top floor. You may have to scale that down and cut it back into the hillside more. I have a lot of concerns about where bioretention is going to happen on this property. Okay, there's nothing that addresses it. Everyone that has done any projects in the Happy Valley area, we hear it, every site that we have on Happy Valley area is complaining about drainage, And so when you look at it in combination with the trees that are there, and because we don't know what species of trees are there, bioretention may not be suitable with some of those trees. So either the trees have to come out because bioretention has to go somewhere. So I'm very concerned about bioretention. I'm concerned about the hammerhead on 4 that maybe is not going to be usable as a hammerhead. And so we're looking at reconfiguration of that driveway to accommodate some hammerhead on the property itself. Staging is a huge problem at this site. I don't know. I had the privilege of going there without knowing that this street was used as the staging area for picking up kids off of Happy Valley. Okay. And at 2:45 in the afternoon, it's an absolute zoo there. Okay. And if you make 2 or 3 cuts for driveways into that cul-de-sac, you're just going to compound the problem that's there. I am really an advocate for this design. To use the one that is less of a cut and leave the trees as a screening element there. That's my prerogative. And staging, I think it's honorable to not do much grading, not take out many trees, but I think you're going to have to relook at that in order to accommodate staging, the bioretention and other things, and the hammerheads that are going to be required by the fire department for these sites.
Thank you. Who wants to go?
May I? I'd like to talk just a little bit about the kinds of things that we're going to be looking to see. Where's the applicant in this group? I lost you. There you are. The things that we're going to need to see for graphic information to understand not only the buildings that you're designing, but how they fit in context with your neighbors. You did mention the site sections showing your neighbor across the street. That's certainly on my list. I think we'd like to see site sections of the three homes in relation to each other, because we also want to be considering, the same kind of privacy and visual impact between the properties that you're proposing to develop. So, I mean, site sections with your neighbors really help us understand the relative scale. So, and for this home, for instance, the home to the left, we'd like to see a site section that shows the relative size. We'd like to see the landscape between the two that's going to the degree they're screened. And that would be true for any of the site sections. Is the screening proposed in existing and new landscaping is an important element of that. I hope you've had a chance to review Lafayette's residential design guidelines. There's been talk about redoing them because they're quite old, but the fact is they're still pretty good. Even though they're sketchy hand drawings, they tell a story and they talk about the kind of building into hillsides and fragmenting masses. And if you haven't had a chance to really dig into that, I would recommend it. Colors in the hillside overlay district. Earth tones, quiet, blend in kind of colors. I mean, I'm sure you would expect that. I've been having a little trouble following plans when some are north up and some are north down. If you could be consistent in showing that, I'm not gonna have it's gonna be easier for me. And I read plans every day, so that would be helpful. You were comparing floor area ratios. I don't think FAR is really a measure of visual impact in this case. I think height, and then this is consistent with something Mr. Greenberg said. I think height and the things that you'll perceive from eye level, which can be depicted on a site section, are probably more useful. And I think that is the extent of my notes. I appreciate that you are working to minimize impact. And I think that with some of the feedback from your neighbors and from this group, I'm sure you'll continue. So thank you for that.
John, do you have an opinion on the driveway on 6?
What I don't see on this is where the Greenbergs driveway is, and I can't understand the relative impact. If I were the Greenbergs and I had headlights coming into my living room, I wouldn't like it. I don't know if that's the case or not. I think some amount, I mean, to me, the impact of a driveway is most often at night. That's disturbing. If that can be dealt with, I mean, I certainly agree with Glenn that cutting into, you would basically want to reconsider the design and the location of the garage if you were moving the driveway to the existing curb cut. And if that means the garage is on a lower level, that makes things more complicated.
If I'm not mistaken, your driveway aligns with what's shown here.
Yes, and again, just to comment that there's plenty of parking on the public street, on the cul-de-sac. And Glenn's point, I agree with you. It's a nightmare in the mornings and the evenings. But they still have to go up the private road and then access. It's more, the problem we have is people coming around the cul-de-sac, not seeing cars coming off the private road. It would be better if the access, as I think the staff was recommending, for the garage closer to the street, less hardscape, easier to get to the garage, and very visible on the cul-de-sac. Because most of the people they're coming up from Happy Valley, they're not coming down that way. Just as I agree with your point, but I don't think it solves it by cutting in up above.
But if you keep making cuts in the cul-de-sac, those people that are trying to stage there have nowhere to stage.
Oh, you can't there can't be staging on the cul-de-sac, and there's not gonna be.
No, I'm not talking about construction staging, staging for their pickup of their children.
No, they do it now. And they don't park and there is a driveway there. They don't park in that driveway.
I understand that. But you'd be blocking, you have a road that has a lot less use right now. Suddenly you're putting 3 more lots on that road.
Absolutely.
Okay. Or you're putting a second cut near the cul-de-sac.
Not a second,
So-
the current cut there.
No, though.
There's an existing cut here. The alternate proposed by the applicant showed a cut here.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have anywhere for the people to, they want to park there. I mean, they're parking, they'd be parking, blocking everybody's driveway. You're gonna have cars blocking everybody's
For
driveway
staging or for normal?
or pick up of the children.
That's happening now. I mean, there's not gonna, it doesn't excuse me, but.
Okay, it's happening now, but it doesn't have the occupancy in those lots.
Agreed.
And that doesn't have as much conflict. But if you keep making cuts in there, then you're gonna have a conflict here and a conflict, you're gonna have two conflicts instead of one centralized conflict.
Okay, thank you. I think we can move on to the next.
My comments, basically, I concur with what the other commissioners have already said. Early on in this design stage where, we're not given a whole lot of detail here in what we're looking at, but I would just say that as far as the general location of where the homes are proposed, where they're avoiding doing a lot of cut into the hillside makes sense to me. Also, where you're limiting the number of trees that you're taking out makes sense to me. So in general, the location of where they're shown on the site for the site development makes sense to me. I think where the opportunity really is how they can be nestled into the hillside. And Mr. Wood was already talking about thinking that direction, but I think that really needs to happen so that the visual mass of the buildings is minimized, because right now they're more of a structure that's set on the site rather than sort of settled into the site. And I think that really needs to be studied more. So it goes in, and the driveway, again, we don't have a whole lot of information to go on, but I think that the alternative that was shown to us, you're gonna end up with pretty big retaining walls, and that doesn't sound very desirable, I don't think, to anybody, in taking out more trees. So a solution that is along the lines of this, but I also like the idea that maybe that garage needs to be in a different spot to make that work better also.
For this lot, for lot 6.
Say again?
For this lot.
Yeah, for that lot, yeah, but, so I think that's it.
Hey, can I just make one more
Mhm, sure.
comment when I went something that you reminded me of? I think it would be helpful to identify dedicated parking for the ADUs. Because right now, on this particular site, if you park close to the ADU, you're blocking the main house access to the garage. So I would just suggest as part of the total site plan.
I'm not sure, but I don't think it's required by zoning that they have to have it dedicated.
That's correct. It's not required.
Could it see?
Class C? Okay, or Class A. Class A, I think Class C. So it depends on the size of the ADU.
Sure. So that's something.
Well,
to
anyway,
consider.
check the requirements. Maybe it's not required. I mean, in my view, it's advisable regardless, but we obviously, if it's not required, we can't twist anybody's arm.
Be aware that the private road is a fire lane, so there's no parking on that road.
Right. If it's a-
Yeah, and the applicant understands that they're parking their cars on their own sites.
Or the public street.
So I agree with all the comments, or most of the comments from my fellow commissioners. I want to just break it down to per lot. For lot 4, I see that the grading of the site it allows for the massing of the building to move back a little bit. When I'm looking at the contours, the site seems to be level up to 580, the contour of 580. So, and then after that, the site becomes steeper. So it feels like the massing could move farther back. And when I'm just looking at the driveway, the slope here is 12%. So there is room for just pushing this back and still maintaining less than 15% of the driveway for the fire access. And that's something that I would ask applicant to study for all 3 lots, that see if the massing in general could get pushed back without just having negative impact on all the technical issues. I agree with the kind of read of the massing. Right now, it doesn't look, as you mentioned, that it doesn't look as terraced massing. That's something that really helps to just reduce the perceived height of the building from the public right of way and the Cambridge Lane or Cambridge Drive, and also just reducing the view impacts on the adjacent neighbors. The other thing that I think is important, and the neighbor brought up, is the privacy. So with these studies, it would be helpful with these site sections that we see how is it impacting the privacy of other neighbors? And what we are looking at, and the grades, as section of Mr. Swat was showing that, both east, west, and north, south, that we see the relationship between these buildings. And as Commissioner Gray mentioned, a context map as you had with more details. I think here you are not showing ADUs. There is a lot of information that was missing from that context map. If this is a site plan that's more, that's showing all three buildings in addition to the neighbors with more detail, and also sections that shows that adjacency, that would be really helpful as well. With that, I don't have any further comments, and we are not gonna make any resolutions. So these are just recommendations from DRC. All right, we are gonna move on to next item on the agenda.
Perhaps we can take a moment to switch out ourselves.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, power bank.
Yeah.
I've put it down.
Yeah. I see. Maybe I can rearrange.
Perfect. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Zettel, and I am the project planner for agenda item 7A, which is a design review permit and grading permit for residential additions and remodel at 418 Costello Road. Perfect. So this quarter-acre subject property is located in the southern portion of Lafayette in Burton Valley. The residence is at the intersection of Costello Road and Cordova Way. The subject parcel topography slopes down from the northwest, and the existing residence is a one-story over garage home that is sited near the front of the parcel, as highlighted in green in the slide. So this project proposes additions to the existing residence, architectural design changes to the exterior that include new colors, materials, and added gable roofs. Site grading is proposed to accommodate the addition area on the main house and provide new landscaping and drainage at the rear of the property. So this project triggers a design review permit because it is a structure exceeding 17 feet, and it triggers a grading permit because earth movement is over 50 cubic yards. So the proposed addition area is 1,069 square feet, totaling at the end of the project for a single family residence over garage that is 3,308 square feet. The addition area, as outlined in blue on the slide of the proposed site plan, will accommodate a new family room, new dining area, an expanded kitchen, as well as an expanded master bed and bathroom. The proposed design retains similar massing to the existing residence and maintains most of the existing gable roof. The proposed design renovates portions of the existing front facade roof line by adding one new gable roof dormer where a covered porch exists, which is shown in the green box. And the design modifies the existing form with a cutout, which is outlined in yellow in my slides, that will accommodate a deck for a guest bedroom. The addition area in the rear residence, which is over the family room, includes a new roof, which is outlined in the blue box. And that is approximately 4 feet taller than the existing roof ridge and is set back from the street to reduce the apparent height and mass. Staff does find potential for off-site visibility from the light produced from the clear story windows and has included a project-specific condition to have staff review the interior light plan that is proposed in order to minimize light filtration to the exterior. Slide, please. So large rear windows and clear story windows are proposed on the rear of the addition that will provide enhanced daylight into the living room, which is to the right, and the master bedroom, which is to the left. All exterior light proposed in this project is downshielded in order to preserve the night sky and diffuse the light visible from the exterior of the residence. So the maximum ridge height of this residence increases from 21 feet to approximately 25 feet, which is allowed by the R10 zoning district regulation, which allows for a 35-foot maximum height. Staff anticipates the new windows on the proposed north elevation shown in this slide will not impact privacy because these windows do face a garage that is downslope at the adjacent property to the north. The south elevation of the residence is screened by proposed tree plantings and an existing fence that will remain. The adjacent property to the south is also higher in elevation, so staff does not foresee any privacy impacts visible from this elevation. Overall, this design proposal is a contemporary architectural style that staff finds is using materials that are keeping with the neighboring homes. Natural materials and predominantly dark painted and wood siding, along with neutral color stucco and a dark shingle roof, will help blend the residence into the surrounding site environment. The total earth movement proposed for this project is 200 cubic yards of cut, and this cut will establish a flat pad for the proposed addition and foundation. It will also accommodate new landscaping in the rear of the property that will ensure proper drainage on the site. The geotechnical report demonstrates that the site is suitable for the proposed cut, provided their recommendations are followed, and staff has incorporated a project-specific condition in order to incorporate the geotechnical studies recommendations into the grading and drainage plans. The city engineer in their review also provided comments on the pop-up emitter in the front yard and reconciling the location of the retaining walls to the geotechnical study. These comments will be addressed by the applicant team during staff review of the construction drawings once approved by the DRC. So there are 7 non-protective trees that are proposed for removal, 2 of which are directly impacted by the proposed addition, which I have circled in blue on this slide. The proposed tree plantings, looking at the southern portion of the residence, will replace those that are removed and retain the screening of that elevation once matured. The proposed 5 new plantings in the rear yard will provide greater canopy and help mitigate the loss of canopy from the 2 trees that are proposed for removal due to the new addition area. The new landscaping on the site is comprised of drought-tolerant plantings. On the front yard, there are decorative boulders, grasses, and low hedges that will be visible from the street and will provide a greater visual interest of the property. The property owner had shared the plans with neighbors and received a support letter from the neighbor at 414 Costello Road, which is the southern next door property to the subject property. And that comment letter was included in the staff report. Staff did receive 1 public comment after publication of the staff report from a resident on Reed Road. Reed Road pictured in the slide is the road just east of Costello. And this resident did voice concern over privacy impacts to their home. However, staff and the applicant team have not received what address they are at on Reed Road after inquiry. But staff would like to clarify that the proposed addition is not a second story addition. And the increase in ridge height from the existing is approximately 4 feet. So staff recommends that the Design Review Commission find the project exempt from CEQA, adopt DRC Resolution 2023-21, and approve the project subject to the conditions attached in the staff report. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions the commissioners might have.
Thank you. Any questions for the staff? Yeah. So with that, we are gonna move to applicant's presentation.
Okay, if you can please introduce yourself and your relationship to the project.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jia Huang. I'm the owner of 418 Castello. I was here with my wife and my daughter were here with me, and the little girl was excited to see what the public hearing is and got overwhelmed. But we bought this house 2 years ago. When we bought it, we knew there are numerous issues. The house is dated. There are problems with the roof, with the foundation, and the front yard and backyard needs a lot of work, and we want more space. But two things trump all these concerns. We love the neighborhood. We love the spot of the house. So we bought with knowing that at some point we want to rehab the house. And our vision is to extend the house, to modernize it, and while fitting in with the neighborhood. And I think the plan my architects put together achieved those goals. And we're excited to see our plan moving through the approval process and the project moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Architect?
Yeah, I'll go next and then we'll have to.
Sure.
So thanks, Gia. My name's McCall Wood. No relation to the previous William Wood who spoke. And then I'm also here with Jeff Gibson. We're with Winder Gibson Architects in San Francisco. So I wanted to briefly present some slides, but Nicole did such a good job, and it's gonna look like we coordinated them, but we didn't. So I don't know if I even need to speak, but I will. So I'll speak about these slides, and then we'll have Amir speak a little bit more about the landscape plan. So as Gia said, the goal for this project is to update the existing 1950s home, which you see on the left. And do this with a minimal number of changes to allow the home to be more visually inviting and friendly to neighbors. So to achieve this goal, we wanted to design the additions and renovations in a way that made them appear to be natural extensions of the existing home. And I think, as Gia said, as you can see in the proposed on the right, the home maintains a scale, a character, and a low profile horizontality that's consistent with the neighborhood and has minimal impacts to neighbors' privacy. Next slide. So we did explore adding a second story addition in order to gain the additional square footage desired, but we opted for a lighter approach instead. We chose to expand the single story footprint into the rear yard, as you can see in red. So this results in less impact on the neighbor's privacy. It avoids increased solar shading on neighboring properties and helps to keep a reduced massing of the home from the street. So as you can see, the addition in red here is basically a natural extension of the existing L shape of the existing home. And it actually covers part of an existing wood deck, which is where that top mulberry tree is. So as Nicole said, we need to remove 2 of those mulberry trees in order to allow for this addition to occur. In addition to this extension into the rear yard, we're also proposing to make 2 small cuts to the existing roof as shown in blue. And those will help create a more articulated front facade. Next slide. So this is the proposed site plan, and you can see the new roof layouts here. The new roof pitches will generally match the existing roof pitches and the ridge heights to stay friendly with the neighborhood and fit seamlessly with the existing home. The one difference you see here, as Nicole stated, is the new pop-up roof over the living room area. And that's about 3 foot 8 inches, 4 feet above the existing roof ridge height. So we tried to keep that living room location as far back from the street as possible in order to keep the massing of the home reduced from the street and seem less overwhelming. So as Nicole said, this incredible space will have so much daylight throughout all hours of the day due to the pop-up and the clear story windows all the way around the top. This pop-up also helps to break down the design into well-scaled pieces. Our request for the grading permit is primarily to regrade the rear yard in order to provide a series of terraced patio spaces stepping up to the rear property line, and those would work naturally with the topography as they step upwards. By doing this, we'll allow the backyard to be better used by Gia's daughter, Esther, who's in the library right now, making the rear yard a little bit more useful. So just for reference, that rear property line is about 8 to 12 feet higher as you walk across it from the first floor elevation itself. So we're also proposing new landscaping throughout the property, which will help filter the view of the home from neighboring properties and from the street, and eventually help with privacy. Demir will speak a little bit more about that at the end. Next slide. So I'll go pretty quickly, but these are starting to look very similar to Nicole's slides. But I wanted to show a little bit of a comparison between the existing elevation and the proposed. Existing is on top, proposed is on the bottom. So the red outlines are new proposed additions, and then the blue outlines the cuts that we'll make to the existing roof. So this is the front elevation on Costello. You can see that the proposed, we've maintained a horizontality of the existing home. But with the addition of the new gable at the front, this really helps brighten up the entry, which is currently under that dark existing front porch. These minimal gestures that we've made with the cutout of the roof on the left and this new dormer in the middle over the entry really helps to create this really beautiful fractal pattern to the front of the home that doesn't exist right now, and makes it a lot more inviting and friendly to passing by. I also like that it allows the home with its profile to kind of gently nod its head to the ups and downs of the hills around our property. Next slide. So for the east rear facade, the massing remains almost identical compared to the existing, with the minor living room addition on the right and the pop-out roof above it. The primary suite will extend directly out from the existing side on the left of the building, and that will extend directly into the backyard. You can see here that we're also proposing larger door and window openings. That will not only create enhanced daylighting on the inside, but I think it really helps to give a better proportion of exterior material to glazing throughout the home and make it more friendly and inviting. Next slide. So on the north side, you can see it also remains almost exactly the same. The garage in the lower right-hand corner will remain in place with the new living room extension and primary suite into the rear yard on the left. Next slide. For the south side elevation here, you can see that the walls and roof generally remain the same, except for our primary suite extension into the rear yard on the right. So you can also see here, it's kind of where the timer is on the right. So the hill really does step up significantly into the backyard. So looking at that comment from that one neighbor that submitted it today, it really is way up significantly higher. And our addition kind of sits below the top height of that fence on the far right-hand side. It's just below it if you were to draw a line across the page. So you can see from these elevations that we really are adhering to the general massing of the existing home, but with these few changes that we're proposing, it really helps kind of let the existing home breathe and brings in a lot of reinvigorated life. Next slide. So for the existing material palette, we're proposing to modernize the aesthetic of the home and make it more fire resilient with the new materials. We're proposing stucco, wood-like fiber cement siding, and natural stone anchoring the garage level base. These new materials are very similar to the existing materials within the neighborhood, but they have a lot more of a modern twist. The new roof material will be an asphalt shingle tile to match the existing, and that is also consistent with the neighborhood. So come on up, do your.
I have 40 seconds.
Yeah.
Well,
Next slide.
And Nicole have done really well. I don't have to say very much.
We have one more. Yeah,
Yeah.
go with it.
The landscape, my name is Demi Herdich. I'm a principal of design at DHD, the Mayor Herdich Design. The landscape approach for this project is really, really simple and sensitive. We are focusing in the back mostly on planting a hedgerow against the property line to really protect, to kind of prevent the light pollution to the neighbor behind, and replacing a number of Japanese maple trees, which are, as you all know, relatively small trees that create both shade and will provide nice little additional screening on for the back door neighbors or side neighbors, if you will. We are replacing the 2 mulberry trees by the 3 trees that are placed on the side that essentially screen the left side of the property in there. And the front is very, very simple. Mostly grasses, sensitive, open, and welcoming to as it would kind of fit, so it fits nicely into the neighborhood. Again, both Nicole and Michael have done really well, so I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but
Thank you.
that should do it. Okay. Sure.
Any questions for the applicant?
Not for me.
No.
Nope.
So we are gonna move to public comments. Do we have any raised hands?
If anyone attending by Zoom would like to make a comment, now is the time to raise your hand or dial *9 if you're attending by phone. I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Okay. So we are gonna move to commissioners' comments. Who wants to go first?
I can start this time.
Sure.
I think you've done a nice job making a nice looking house. I think it's a great improvement over what is there. I have just a couple of very minor concerns. First of all, I agree with the staff comment on interior lighting. You put in a lot of glass, and we don't want to see light sources. They want that to either be recessed or shaded or something. And I think that's a very good addition. There's another issue with the glass that is probably less a design review commission concern, but I think something I'd like to mention anyway, is that on your west facade, your front facade, you've got the potential for just tremendous solar gain. And whether you do, I mean, high performance glass can only do so much. So I would just, for your client's sake, so they don't toast, I'd recommend some consideration of window coverings. I don't know how you do window coverings on high sloped clear stories. It's not so easy. Your overhangs are you have some overhang. It's not that big. So that's really in the category of advice rather than anything else. I think it's a nice job. I think you've done well. Thank you for that.
Thank you, John. Who's gonna go next?
Sure, I'll go. I just, it's very nice design. I think that keeping it 1 story was a really good decision to help it fit with the neighborhood and sort of, if you can skip over all those concerns from the neighbors about privacy and all that sort of thing, the way the house is sited and having a 1-story design, I think it's a good approach. And it's a, you know, like a lot of homes in Lafayette, they're old and they're sort of worn out. And so this, to me, in my eye, you're doing the right things to, you know, bring it into today and do modernize the home and so that it can, you know, flourish for the next 50 years. So good job. I don't have any other concerns.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a excellent design, and I was concerned a little bit about light pollution from the living area, but actually seeing the slide where the terrain and the fence on the property line to read, it really is visually underneath the fence line. So a lot of the light pollution will stay on their property and not affect the neighbor wherever they are on Reed Street.
I agree with my fellow commissioners. I think it's a great improvement to the house. I appreciate your sensitivity about the context and the materials. I think it's very well conceived, the design of the house, and I also appreciate the landscape. I think the landscape design is very nice. It's it has that kind of minimalistic look, but it's a great improvement both to the backyard and the front yard of the house. With that, I'm in support of the this project that was presented tonight. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We can find the project exempt from CEQA and adopt the resolution drafted by staff, including the staff recommendations on lighting in the living area.
I will second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So with that, we approve the project with the conditions.
Thank you.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are gonna move to the next item. 7B. PR 17-22, TP 32-22, GR 06-22, Hoffman Morgan. R40 zone request for design review, tree permit, grading permit for additions, totaling 4,131 square foot, including a 704 square foot detached accessory building, a 740 square foot two-car garage, a 464 square foot one-car garage, and a 608 square foot covered outdoor living area with a maximum reach height of 26 foot 1 inch. Removal of a protected 12-inch diameter cross live oak tree and grading in the amount of 290 cubic yards cut and 350 cubic yards filled. Net import of 60 cubic yards at 4031 Happy Valley Road. We have Anatole as the project planner, please.
Thank you. I'm sorry for making that project description so long. Hearing the whole thing. This is a proposal to renovate and add to an existing one-story single-family residence in the Happy Valley area. This proposal requires design review because it is over 17 feet in height and exceeds 6,000 square feet in floor area. Design review is the primary permit, and as you mentioned, the proposal also includes secondary permits, those being for grading and tree removal. So the grading permit is to cut 290 cubic yards, balanced on site, and import an additional 60 cubic yards of soil, while the tree permit is required for the removal of a protected oak tree. The commission must make all the required findings for each of these permit types in order to approve the project tonight. Next slide. The lot is just under 1 acre and is mostly flat with a gentle slope down toward the rear. The Happy Valley area is characterized by a variety of architectural styles and a range of home sizes. The property is not located in the Hillside Overlay District. Slide. The proposal includes additions to the front, east side, and rear, maintaining the residence as a single story. The existing footprint is shown in gray to provide reference for the proposed building. The existing residence is 3,365 square feet with a 675 square foot garage. The proposed residence will be 6,263 square feet with approximately 12,000 square feet of garage area, enough for 3 cars parked inside the garages. And the detached guest suite to the rear is 704 square feet. The new design incorporates more varied roof lines, and the gables at each end create symmetry. The existing elevation is shown in the upper corner. The single car garage opens parallel to the street, which improves the view from the street. And not shown in the renderings is existing and proposed landscaping, which will add visual interest and create screening for privacy. The existing residence is not visible from the street, and the proposed residence will not be highly visible from the street either. The chosen colors and materials help it to further blend in with the environment. What? At the rear, dormers have been added to break up the roof line, and gables continue the symmetry of the facade. The covered outdoor living area is shown to the left, with the detached guest suite shown to the right. And these together create a courtyard style outdoor area, which reduces privacy impacts both to the homeowner and neighbors. What? Bump outs and recessed areas along the east elevation break up the mass and add shadow relief. And existing and new vegetation will also offer screening. Next slide. Similar bump outs, recessed areas, and varied roof lines with gables along the west elevation also add visual interest and add shadow relief to the design. The residence will go from 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 powder room baths, an office and a 2-car garage, to 3 bedrooms, 4 1/2 bathrooms, an office, outdoor covered living area identified on plans as a loggia, and an additional single car garage. The accessory building to the rear will include a guest bedroom and bathroom, as well as a home gym. This is not an accessory dwelling unit as it exceeds the height maximums to be classified as such, and it also does not contain a kitchen. Okay. No public comments were received by the noon deadline today. Staff did receive standard comments from referral agencies Central Sand, Confire, EB Mud, the city engineer, and the city landscape consultant. And these comments do not require significant revisions. Any requirements that they have can be addressed during the review of the construction drawings. The applicant will need to submit final permit drawings to Central Sand, Confire, and the city engineer for approval during that phase. Staff can make the findings required for design review and the grading permit. Furthermore, the proposal is consistent with the general plan, applicable zoning regulations, and residential design guidelines. Staff recommends the DRC adopt resolution 2023-20, approving the project subject to conditions. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Thank you.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
The applicant's presentation did not include any depiction of neighboring context whatsoever. You said that the site is not visible from the road. Is the site also not visible from any neighboring property at all?
The trees along each of the property lines are tall and mature. There is a residence, if you want to go back to the very first slide. Oh, sorry, yeah. So this residence here is a newly constructed approximately 10 or 11,000 square foot residence. But it's a little bit downhill. This is a creek along the rear property line of that residence. So this actually is not much taller because it's downhill and it's built into a slope. The applicant didn't provide site sections, but the contours along this portion of Happy Valley Road are the same level as the existing residence. And I believe both of these residences are single story, but the applicant may be able to confirm that.
Okay, thank you.
So a related question, so along the front, on the Happy Valley Road frontage, there's solid fencing and solid gate all the way along there, and I didn't see any changes to that. Am I correct with that, that stays the way it is?
Yes, as long as the gate and entry will need to be reviewed by the fire district, and usually existing is allowed to remain. If any changes are required, the fire department will let them know.
Any more questions? No? Thank you. So with that, we are going to move to applicant or presentation.
Introduce yourself and your relationship to the project.
My name is Mark Penny with Talon Design, here on behalf of the owner, and also here with Alan Page from Talon Design. And Anna, nice to finally see your face. We emailed a lot. I don't think we've ever met. So as with the last one, staff's presentation was pretty thorough. I have a few slides prepared. I'll run through pretty quickly, and then we can go to questions. The first slide is just about context. We're looking at the other homes in the area, and as Anna said, there's quite a variety of size, but the size that we're proposing is not unprecedented in the neighborhood. The house directly behind the new build is quite large, around 11,000 square feet. There's another house over 6,000 square feet. A lot of our area is in garages and outdoor covered spaces as well. It's not all conditioned living space. So we feel contextually, you know, we're not out of context with the neighborhood. We're well within the reasonable range. And in terms of scale, just again, keeping it single story, you know, the site had room to grow to accommodate the owner's program. So rather than building up, we kind of spread out a little bit and tried to do it sensitively, and maintain still lots of buffers around the property, which you'll see on future slides. So next slide, please. So in terms of massing, as you can see from the model images, you know, just a lot of modeling, you know, a lot of relief both in floor plan and roof line. So there's lots of recesses and shadow lines and variety to the roof line so that the mass is broken up and overall perception is minimalized. I think particularly from the street, if we could just go back to the front view again, sorry, back one slide, you know, it doesn't present itself from the street as a large house. A lot of the wings go further back. So, you know, from a neighbor's perspective, there's a lot of trees on the side yards. So we think that, you know, it doesn't impact the neighbors, and from the street, it still reads as quite a modest home. Okay, next slide, please. And yeah, I think we can go to the next one. So, and in terms of siting, as was mentioned, the site slopes from the street toward the back, and you can see the contours at the front of the house. So the street is up on the page. So the house sits down relative to the street quite a bit. As was stated, it's pretty much not visible from the street right now. The intention is to maintain the fence and gate. And while we are taller than the existing home, don't think that it's going to have a large impact from the street. Yeah, the court. Sorry, it's hard for me with my glasses. They're like trifocal, and I'm trying to read my own comments. So we have the loggia wing on the one side and the siting of the guest accommodation to create this sort of court. And a lot of the intention there was also, as was mentioned, about privacy, creating a nice, almost outdoor room-like living space for the owners, and keep it contained, so to improve their privacy and the privacy of the neighbors. So, and there's also, I think, worth mentioning on the left side here on the west, that's the right of way going to the flag lot for the home behind. So that's even an additional buffer to that neighboring property. Okay, next slide, because I can't really read what I wrote. So, right, and landscape. So as was mentioned, there is a protected tree coming down, but we're putting in the mitigation planting. And as you can see, a lot more additional planting for additional screening. Particularly, we've added quite a bit around the guest unit to minimize the wall height there, have that feel more settled into the landscape. And that's really about it. A lot more planting and colors, right? Material palette, as you can see in the model, you know, all the stone, the walkways, pool deck, and everything would be bluestone, metal roof, natural cedar siding, and black for the windows and doors. Pretty simple palette, pretty contemporary, but still has a nice sort of traditional feel material wise, settling it into the site. You know, that's about it, unless you have think of anything else.
No, I mean, we're utilizing the existing footprint for the most part. The biggest extension is the outdoor room, and then the detached cottage, and then the additional bedroom wing forward. But the body of the house is really in the same position. We're using, you know, the same foundation and the same subfloor at that location.
Now, what's the flooring on the loggia?
That will be slab on grade.
Okay.
So I think that's where.
And the
a good chunk of the
bluestone,
fill-
where does the bluestone occur again?
Well, that'll be in the loggia, the covered porches, and the pool deck.
So it's a covering on a slab on grade.
Correct.
Okay, it's not a floater.
No.
Okay.
Any more questions for the applicant? No.
I'm sorry, sir, would you mind just introducing yourself for the record?
Yeah, my name's Alan Page with Talent Design Group.
One other question. And I can never remember acronyms correctly. Cole, what, the landscape numbers? Do you have a total? I mean, I saw on their list on the one page, the landscape plan.
Right.
You know, you identified low, moderate, but is there a total water use that you have determined because you have a pool?
Oh, you mean the WELO? I'm
the
not sure if it's calculated yet either. I'd have to see what.
I'm sure that'll be required for construction.
It will
drawings.
have to be compliant with the construction drawings.
Yeah.
But we typically look at it during that.
Okay, so historically, we try to keep it below the allowable because the East Bay mud thing is more like, is the water capacity sufficient there? So we've been trying to keep it under like 750 gallons per day. And when I look at the quantity that you have there with the pool, I questioning whether you're hitting that. Okay.
Okay, with that, we are gonna move to public comments. Do we have any raised hands?
Anyone attending by Zoom can raise their hand at this time if they'd like to speak. If you're calling in, you can dial *9. Seeing no raised hands.
Thank you. So we are gonna move to commissioner's comments. Who wants to go first?
Well, I think it's a very nice design. I think it's a great example of how you could take a really large house and make it feel like it isn't large in that sense. I think the view from the front where it looks sort of a normal size, normal massing, but it's broken up in a way that fits into the site very nicely. So overall, I mean, it's really nice, high quality design. I think it looks great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's nice design. I like it. I'm a little concerned about impervious areas. You got quite a bit, and I thought that after we hit 10,000, there was a special document that city engineer requires, but I didn't see it in his comment sheet.
Yes, so the applicant is proposing a bioretention basin to treat all runoff from the site, and the engineer reviewed that.
Okay, so, you know, my comment is that's why I was asking about the loggia and stuff like that. You know, you could have areas that are the bluestone that aren't on a slab. And we would take some of that water away from the bioretention. Because the bioretention right now is in a sensitive area of tree growth, and they're not even sure that it's gonna work. You know, that's under review. So the more, I mean, if we can loosen up some of that impervious area, you know, some of the pool deck, maybe some areas would be solid, but maybe some of the pool deck doesn't have to be more that courtyard. Yeah, I think I would like to see more pervious. Okay.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned in my question to staff, the thing that I'm uncomfortable with is that there is no depiction whatsoever of your relationship to context. This is not about reviewing just your design. This is about trying to understand if there is any adverse impact on your neighbors. And I think the answer is no, but I can't really tell. In particular, your neighbor, let's see, to the east, where there's not the driveway separating the two lots, you're doing a long addition along that side of the property. And you know, I cannot understand if there is any impact there or not, what the sightlines are between the two homes, or if there's anything your neighbor would be concerned about. They're not here. I don't know if they know about this meeting or not. But to me, that is essential for understanding if there's any impact here. So I'm not comfortable approving this project without some kind of depiction of context and understanding impacts to your neighbors. I mean, I think it's a nice looking house. The you're not expanding it. I mean, I'm trying to understand where impacts might be different from what exists today. And I think mainly it's to your neighbor to the east. And I would just like to see that that's considered and like to see a drawing that demonstrates if there is an impact there or not.
So you would think a section picking up. both
Typically,
homes?
we like to see site sections that include each of your neighbors and understand what the visual screening is between them with the existing and the proposed landscape elements. And if there are any facing windows to each other, understanding potential sightlines.
Since you opened it up, just a question, do the commissioners normally visit the site?
We normally do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was unable to this time because I was out of town. But what we ask for as a matter of project record is to demonstrate that we have, done a diligent review of a project, because we'd like to have a record that shows.
That's why I'm asking.
What's in our heads is not a matter of public record.
Yeah,
What
we-
is in your submission is a matter of public record.
Yeah,
For
we-
future reference,
We visit the site, but you drive up streetwise and you're looking on the property. I don't take it upon myself that I can start walking in their backyard.
Okay.
And so then I see the juxtaposition of the neighbors and the driveway on the one side. But I don't really know, what's on their side of the house, is that their main master bedroom or, and
Yeah. So I mean, that it's a problem for us too, in that we can't just walk onto the neighbor's property and have, all I can do is go. on
well, you
Google.
can't, but you can, you can
I can
sort
go
of
to-
easily depict from a site plan and say, okay, their setback is 20 feet.
Yeah.
And it's a 1-story with a
Right.
pitched roof
Well-
like this and.
Well, and further, most times when there's a residential project like this, the property owner or their architect or a developer will reach out to the neighbors and say, we're doing this, take a look, do you have any concerns? Maybe you've done this already. And then you'll typically have an opportunity to see the world from their point of view.
And photos are also another good thing to add, right? You may not be able to walk on their property, but you can certainly show the site from.
I mean,
A photo,
I'm looking
a
at.
photo
Google-
There's a
from-
lot of vegetation.
A photo from the
When you
loggia.
walk around,
Yeah.
we're not even
Yeah.
thinking about the neighbor because there's no presence of it there.
Right.
So
Yeah,
yeah, maybe
yeah.
photos of that tell a lot of
Right.
the story.
I agree with John's comments. That's actually one comment I had in my mind. Actually, I visited the site. I saw the existing house and I see the proposed house does not have that much visual impact from the Happy Valley. But then again, we are not a neighbor and we don't see it from that side. And actually, with all of these tools, like the Google Earth and all the other tools, there are ways that we could use them and just bring that information into our drawings. And historically, in the past few years, that was one of the drawings that we have asked all the applicants to include in their set. For us to review and just be able to make comments, especially because of the privacy concerns regarding the neighbors. With all that said, I think it's a beautiful design. I think the drawings in terms of the renderings were helpful, but we didn't have the material board that you showed here in your presentation on the drawings. There were some of that information that was missing from the drawings that we received. Besides that, if you could include that drawing, the side sections, that shows the proposed condition in relation to the neighbors, and also bring in some of that presentation materials that we saw tonight on the drawings. And do you
Like
wanna-
the physical samples of the
no,
materials.
just on the drawing set. You could, the photos that you included on the presentation tonight was not on the drawing set.
We didn't know it was bluestone. We didn't.
Oh, well, there was a color board submitted and
apologize.
images of the
Yeah,
model.
That wasn't added.
It
to
wasn't
the
on,
set.
it wasn't on the PDF file.
I'm sorry.
No, no worries.
I believe 2 site sections would be sufficient. One that shows your neighbors east and west, and one that shows your neighbor to the south from the roadway to the south house behind you, and with an approximation of the landscaping.
So with that said, and also that none of the neighbors, they have raised any concerns regarding the privacy. Can we say that this doesn't come back to DRC and just get reviewed by 1 or 2 of the commissioners after putting that information on the drawing set?
I mean, that's okay with me if,
Okay.
you know, in addition to staff, if a
Right.
couple of commissioners take a look,
Sure.
which usually happens by email discussion.
Sure.
Okay, so we're making a resolution, resolution to approve, subject to the staff review of
I can-
the cross sections.
Yes, can I read an updated language for staff recommendation? Easy. Staff recommendation is to find the project exempt from CEQA and adopt resolution 2023-20, approving the project subject to conditions with the additional condition to provide site sections east, west, and north, south, demonstrating neighbor context for final DRC review.
Great, thank you.
And this would be reviewed by 1 or 2 DRC members, is that correct?
So with that, who's gonna?
I can second that. Or I can say I said it.
How about so moved?
All in favor?
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Did we have an actual second?
I'll second.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. So with that, we are gonna approve the project with the conditions. I'm looking forward to get that.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, we'll
Appreciate it.
get right on it.
And then, we are gonna move to, other business. Art volunteer for November 17th.
I can do that.
Thank you, Glenn. Then do we have any commissioners reports?
I will not be available for the meeting on the 27th. But I am available for art the Friday following.
And staff liaisons reports? No? Okay, thank you. With that, we are gonna adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.